I had £60,000 worth of stock outside Wembley Stadium. So this is the story of how I almost got robbed in Wembley. Now, for those of you who don't know Wembley Stadium, it's the main stadium in London. London is the knife capital of the world. So we'll go through the story. I'll tell you what happened. So young Theo, in his £800 van, on real hustler mode, he had a trainer show in London. And we were driving down to London in the van. There was only one thing. The van was a cheap van, and the van had a crack in the water tank. Me being me, overly optimistic, I realised that you could fill the tank up and it'd keep running, but you've got to just do it more consistently. I didn't have any problems with it. And plus, because of my age, I couldn't rent a van anyway. It was too much. I couldn't get insured. All these problems. So I thought, yeah, it'll be fine for London. Got up nice and early, filled the car up with my friend, and then I had two other friends that were driving down also. So then we set off, and we got to around Wakefield, which is about 3.5 hours away from London. And we're talking about the van and the issues with the van. And then what happened is, the van broke down as we were talking about it on the motorway. Full of stuff, broke down. We had a hotel in London. We had paid for the show. I was around £500-600 invested in this day. So then we had to call it a year. We were on the side of the motorway with the broke down van, and we needed to get someone to tow it to the nearest service station. This took around 6 hours. And in the meantime, we were ringing around, trying to get someone to take us a lift to London straight away. Ringing everybody, nobody wanted to take us. Finally, a good friend of mine was an Amazon delivery driver. With this job, he had a van, and he offered to take us down to London and drive straight back. So luckily, it took us down to London, and I then had to pay for the van to get towed, and then I was going to just sort that another day and then get a lift back. So we went to London, got there late, got to the show in the morning, just did a few trips around Wembley, set up the table, traded all day. It was shit. Complete waste of time, terrible show. Now, when the show finished, our friend wasn't there for another 4 or 5 hours because he was still working and he had to get down to London. And we started bagging up very slowly. We didn't have anywhere to go because we were just going to drive straight back. Now, we had all the stuff in the bags. At this point, it was about 8 p.m. All the traders had left. And it was at Box Park, Wembley. So if you know Box Park, it opens to the general public after an event. And they were getting a bit anxious about us being there. And we were just trying to explain, like, we've got a lift, but it's about 3-4 hours away. We've got nowhere to go. They didn't give a shit. So they just pushed us out. And finally, they made us leave. So there we was. We had around 10 IKEA bags filled to the brim, 6 pairs in a bag each, loads of the bags, and we had expensive shoes in there, 300, 400, 600, 800 pound a pair, loads of them, and we had to just stand there, literally outside Wembley Stadium, at about 9 p.m. in the centre of London. And we were trying to ring around to get a lift because it were a matter of time with us being stood there. We couldn't have stood there for so long. Couldn't have gone to McDonald's because of all the stuff that we had with us. We literally had nowhere to go. And we started ringing around people who might know somebody who lives here. And we ended up getting in touch with one of my friends, someone he met at a trading event once. And this guy took us in and let us go to his house on a Sunday night, late at night, with all the stock. He just let us wait there in his house. One of the guys I've only met one time. And yeah, he probably saved me about 60 grand that day. Probably stopped us getting stabbed. So yeah, the moral of the story is, there's a fair line between being optimistic and being careless. This was careless. This could have cost a lot of money. So use risk management when you're going through your business. Subscribe down below.